It is with the heart that one sees rightly. What is essential is invisible to the eye. Thank you again for tuning in to the You Only podcast. Today I want to be reading to you Emotional Intelligence by Daniel Goleman. This book was published in 1995, and Daniel Goleman is an American psychologist, author, and science journalist. For 12 years, he wrote for the New York Times, reporting on the brain and behavioral science, which in 1995 he wrote Emotional Intelligence and was a New York Times bestseller for a year and a half. Welcome to the intelligence that changes everything. Let me start with a question. What if something you thought you knew about success, intelligence, and potential was only half the truth? We've been taught that IQ, or cognitive ability, is the ultimate measure of intelligence, that those with the highest score win. But what if I told you there's another kind of intelligence that's more predictive of success in work, love, leadership, and life? And that's called emotional intelligence. And today, we're unlocking Daniel Goleman's powerful 5-part framework. We'll explore stories, science, and strategies that will shape the way you see yourself and everyone around you. Self-awareness, the mirror you avoid. Let's start with the foundation of self-awareness. It's the ability to recognize what you're feeling, why you're feeling it, and how those feelings are affecting your behavior in the moment. Goleman says, if you don't have self-awareness, you are not going to get very far. I want to share a real story with someone on Reddit, and they said, I grew up thinking there was something seriously wrong with me. I hated myself. If I had emotional intelligence as a kid, I could have understood myself better. Think about that. We spend years studying math and science, but how often do we study ourselves? We ignore ourselves, I feel. I know I do. Ask yourself right now, what are you feeling? Name it, trace it, own it, because until you do, it controls you. The next part, mastering the inner fire. Self-regulation. This is your ability to manage your emotions, not by stuffing them down, but by responding instead of reacting. Goleman writes, there is perhaps no psychological skill more fundamental than resisting impulse. Think about the last time you were triggered. Someone said something, you felt, you know, your beat rise, your chest was puffed out. Did you lash out, shut down, or breathe through it? There is power in pause. Because when you regulate your emotions, you control the narrative, not someone else. And that's real talk. People trust you more when you can stay centered in chaos. Self-regulation is a leadership skill. Remember, pause. When somebody comes up and they're tripping, your emotions are messengers, not masters. Let them speak, then decide what to do. Motivation is something that Daniel Goleman talks about in this book. Fuel from within. And let's talk about motivation. not the cheerleader kind either. I'm talking about intrinsic drive, the energy that runs without applause. Goleman found that emotionally intelligent people are highly motivated, not by external rewards, but by purpose, progress, and passion. One listener told me how, after reading Emotional Intelligence, they left a soul-sucking job to start a business that aligned with their values. They said, "For the first time, I woke up excited to work." Now ask yourself, if no one ever saw you win, would you still pursue it? True motivation is silent, it's steady, and self-propelling. Find it, follow it. It's all of our duty. And thank you guys again for listening to the You Only podcast. And hopefully you're enjoying Emotional Intelligence by Daniel Goleman. Empathy is the next part. And empathy is important. It's the superpower of the century. Empathy is often misunderstood. People think it's soft or it's softness, but it's actually strategic. And Goleman explains a prerequisite to empathy is simply paying attention to the person in pain. Empathy is your ability to sense and feel what others are experiencing. It's how trust is built, how healing begins. A healthcare worker told me that when they started practicing emotional intelligence, they stopped rushing through patients and started truly listening. And the result, fewer complaints, more breakthroughs. So empathy is not agreement. It's literally connection. It's not fixing, it's feeling. Try this today. Look at someone and ask yourself, what are they not saying out loud? Because we have so many conversations with people during the day, and nowadays people are just so afraid to express their true feelings and emotions because they've been put in some sort of box. And we have to learn to have emotional intelligence to, you know, be able to read someone, to be able to see that, hey, they're not able to understand what they're going through or what they're being dealt. And empathy is a big one. The next one I want to talk about is social skills. Influence without force. The final pillar is social skills and emotional intelligence. It's the ability to navigate conflict, build rapport, influence without force, and lead with emotional clarity. I believe Goleman he famously said, CEOs are hired for their intellect and fired for lack of emotional intelligence. And so social skill turns knowledge into impact. It's how you move teams, lead challenge, and create culture. A brilliant engineer told me he was constantly passed over for leadership roles. Why? He lacked emotional intelligence. Once he worked on listening, which active listening is something that everybody needs to do, collaboration, which it isn't just my way or the highway, and feedback delivery. He became the team lead in 6 months. So your social skills are the bridge between your ideas and their impact. So remember, self-awareness, know yourself. Self-regulation, master your reactions. Motivation, pursue purpose. Empathy, feel others. Slow down, listen. Don't just listen to react. Listen to feel, listen to logic and understanding, and make sure you listen to the words they use and their body language. That's so important. And social skill, connect to influence. IQ may open doors, but emotional intelligence is what keeps you in the room. So, pretty much here's your challenge. Pick one of the 5 domains this week. Try this. Just one. Practice it, observe it, reflect on it. Let it shift how you live, how you lead, how you love. This has been the emotional intelligence that changes everything. So continue on your journeys and continue striving to understand what you're going through and understand that your self-awareness is huge. And they have it's a GEIT test, and it's an emotional intelligence test, and it scores you in all 4 categories of self-awareness, relationship management, social awareness, and self-management.
Thank you again for listening to the You Only podcast, and I want to hand this over to Daniel Goleman, and hopefully you enjoy this as much as I have.
When I wrote the book Emotional Intelligence, a lot of people had an aha experience like, oh, so that's what's going on. It was the first time that for a popular audience, emotional intelligence had become well known. I was a science journalist at the New York Times back then, and I'd been covering a decade of research on the brain and emotion. And I wanted to have a frame for that. I integrated it with the findings from research on outstanding performers. And I saw that people who emerge as outstanding performers or the best leaders have high emotional intelligence. So from the get-go, I've seen emotional intelligence as having to do with leadership. And this was taken up by the Harvard Business Review. They've done a series of articles, starting with one which said, look, emotional intelligence is the core of effective leadership. And now I talk about 4 domains of emotional intelligence, and then 12 particular competencies of people who are high in emotional intelligence. Combination of self-awareness, managing your emotions well, social awareness, empathy, tuning into other people, and putting that all together to have harmonious or effective relationships.
So, Mr. Goleman, is emotional intelligence learnable for most people?
Unlike IQ, which barely budges over the course of our life, emotional intelligence can change. It's learned and learnable. And it's learned and learnable at any point in life. Self-awareness means you know what you're feeling, you know how it shapes your perceptions and your thoughts and your impulse to act. Emotional self-awareness is what I'm talking about. Emotion directs attention. So knowing what you're feeling and how strongly you're feeling it and where it's driving you to attend is extremely important, because your attention creates your reality moment to moment. So self-awareness gives you a kind of diagnosis of where am I right now. Maturity is sometimes defined as widening the gap between impulse and action. Self-awareness, it's the least visible part of emotional intelligence, but we find in our research that people low in self-awareness are unable to develop strengths very well in other parts of emotional intelligence. People who are high in self-awareness, however, are able to develop excellence across the board very often. Self-management in my model has 4 different components. One of them is handling upsetting emotions so they don't get in the way of what you have to do right now. Another aspect of emotional self-management is marshaling positive emotions, seeing the bright side of things, not just the glass is half empty, but feeling pretty good about what's happening no matter what happens.
Hi, I'm Grace from the Philippines. Mabuhay! And I'm listening to the You Only podcast. I'm a huge fan.
And that lets you also be agile, another aspect. Adjust to changing situations. You want to have a growth mindset. See yourself as able to improve and other people as able to improve. And finally, you want to keep your eye on the goal that matters despite the distractions of the day. So goal focus is an emotional self-management tool too. Model of emotional intelligence. The third part is social awareness, which in one sense means sensing how your organization works. It's a kind of systems point of view. But I think as a leader, what matters more is empathy. How you tune into your people, the people around you, the people above you, to the side, below you. And tuning in has three parts. One is cognitive empathy, understanding how that person sees the situation, what their perspective is. It's walking a mile in their shoes, as the proverb says. You're able to sense the language or mental models a person uses as a frame on reality. What language do they use to explain what's going on to themselves? If you have high cognitive empathy, you can message quite well. You can hit the target with what you say to the person because you know the language that they understand. The second part is emotional empathy. And this has to do with the design of the social circuitry in the human brain. The brain is designed to lock into the brain of the person in front of us and to create a pathway that's instantaneous, automatic, and unconscious for what that person is doing, intending, and feeling. And this helps us keep our interaction on the same page, on target, emotionally. The third part of empathy, which I think is really important for leadership and all too often just ignored, is caring. It's called technically empathic concern. And it means, I know what you think, I know what you feel, but I also care about you. And so leaders have to have this ability to communicate that they care about the person, they're concerned about them. This, by the way, builds huge trust, huge rapport between a leader and the people they lead. Fourth part of emotional intelligence is relationship management. It's what we see every day. It's what leaders display. Can you guide? Can you influence? Can you get work done well through other people? Can you inspire? Can you get the best out of people because you can articulate meaning here in what we're doing? Are you a good team member? Not just on your team at the same level. If you're in the C-suite, that's a team. How are you as a team player? And then how are you as a team leader? Can you handle conflicts well? Can you keep yourself calm and listen to both sides and come up with a good enough solution that both sides can accept? Do you realize that you are in a position to help the people you lead become leaders of the future? Can you help them develop strengths? Can you coach them? Can you mentor them? Can you help them strengthen the leadership cadre of your organization going into the future?
Thank you again for listening to the You Only podcast. That was Daniel Goleman and Emotional Intelligence. Give me a 5-star review over there on Spotify or Apple, Google, wherever you get your podcast from. Thank you.